Hello, everyone. Um, I have been meaning to do something like this for a while, and so, well, today's the day. The mood just struck me. It was something I felt I could knock out fairly quickly. Albeit, I don't really. I have a penchant for doing long videos, so I say that, but it's probably going to end up being a longer video anyway, just due to my presentation style and my tendency to overdevelop my talking points. Um, but bear with me, we've got some good stuff here. So, what I want to talk about today is things that misconceptions or ideas that are kind of not the best flat earth ideas that flat earthers unfortunately kind of parrot and put out there. And in many cases, these ideas are outright wrong, demonstrably so, or they're illogical, or they're just unsubstantiated and they make the whole flat earth perspective of things seem ridiculous. And so these are things you should just be very careful of. And these may be areas that you might want to research for yourself in more detail to kind of make sure that you have all sides of the argument before you open these particular cans of worms. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. I made up a little brief list of some of these things. We'll just go in order. So one thing that you hear flat earthers say sometimes, and biblical, Bible believers, is that gravity isn't real. That's a real problem. Gravity is absolutely real, but I mean gravity in the sense of what goes up must come down. That is a readily observable phenomenon that everyone has experience with. And so if you just say gravity isn't real and don't explain that statement, immediately people are going to think that you're a complete moron. Now, we do need to be careful here. Um, Understand that Newton didn't invent gravity, he didn't discover gravity. What was Newton's accomplishment? He offered an explanation for why and how gravity worked. And by the way, there are other explanations. There's at least two other viable explanations that work equally well to Newton's conceptualization. So his concept was that mass attracts mass. And the problem with this concept is it doesn't actually work. It doesn't work on numerous levels. I've talked in other videos about the three body problem. I'm not going to talk about that more in this video. The other problem is we don't really see mass affecting mass on a normal day-to-day scale like we should if Newton's theories were correct. We should see things like if we lived in a heliocentric model and Newton's conceptualizations of gravity were correct, during the daytime when the sun's overhead, you should weigh a little less because its gravity should be pulling against you, and you're on the side of the Earth that's closest to the sun. We're told that the moon's gravity actually pulls the water that is on the side of the Earth closest to the moon outward towards the moon, and then it pulls the Earth a little less strongly than that, and then it pulls the waters on the far side of the Earth even less strongly, and so you get the Earth with these two bulges of water on either side of it. Um, if that's true, which it isn't, that's just not how things work. It's pretty easily demonstrable that if we had these two huge bulges of water that were sweeping over the surface of the globe Earth twice a day, well, that places that are only a few inches or a few feet above the sea level should be getting completely swamped every day by this tsunami that would sweep across the globe Earth. That just doesn't happen. Um, there's videos on one of these websites that I'm going to show you about tidal nodes if you're interested in getting some ideas about how the tides may actually work. I'm not going to get on that rabbit trail either. My point is that when the sun's above us in the daytime, we should weigh less. When it's nighttime and the sun's on the other side of the Earth, we should weigh more because not only the Earth's gravity would be pulling us down, but the sun's gravity would be added to that. There's all manner of little things like that that we should be able to demonstrably prove. When the sun is rising in the east, we should be pulled more in that direction than to the west. And likewise at night as the sun sets, and so forth. We should see all these things reflected in the world around us, and we don't. In other words, the idea that gravity is caused by mass attracting mass isn't real. And I think that's what a lot of flat earthers mean when they say gravity isn't real. But they don't develop that, and so people who don't understand the thinking behind it are confused and just think that we're, denying obvious phenomena that everyone can see. So don't just say gravity's not real. Say Newton's concept of gravity isn't real, or the idea of mass attracting mass isn't real. Understand that the gravity equations don't work, which is why scientists had to invent this fake thing that doesn't exist, dark matter, because there's missing gravity. So there needs to be more matter in the universe to make everything work. Um, Newton's concept of gravity, mass attracting mass, isn't real. Words matter, and how we present arguments matters. So don't go around just saying gravity isn't real. It's absolutely real. The observable phenomenon of it is real. If you're interested in doing a deep dive and you're a serious math or physics kind of guy, um, Globebusters. Uh, Let me just put it this way: those guys are like some of the more cerebral flat earthers, and they're not perfect. They have some ideas that are a little crazy to me, but they dig into the science side and the math and the physics, and on their various highly detailed um, videos and talks, they've discussed some of these other concepts of gravity that are out there and that are functional and that people are doing experiments with and showing that they actually work. Um, the idea of mass attracting mass being the driving force, or the driving explanation behind gravity, that definitely is not real, though. Just be careful of your presentation. So another thing that you sometimes hear some poorly informed flat earthers talking about is that gravity is due to the acceleration of the flat earth disk upwards through space at 9.8 meters per second squared. And it's like a coin flying through the heliocentric model, and we're all kind of being pushed down into that leading surface of it, and that's where gravity comes from. That's nonsense. That's stuff that's being put out there by 100 years ago, the Flat Earth Society was pretty serious, but they've become infiltrated by the establishment and their disinformation agents, and now they just exist to make the Flat Earthers look stupid. And so don't use the Flat Earth Society or their websites as references. There's just so much falsehood mixed in with a little bit of truth that it causes a great deal of confusion. Every once in a while you see stories of these couples deciding, oh, we're going to go find the edge. And that's generally driven by they're doing their research from these Flat Earth Society websites. There is no edge. Serious flat earthers who have really dug into things don't hold to there being an edge, because at the very least you have the Antarctic ice wall that hems everything in. Um, if there is an edge, it's out beyond that somewhere. I'll just pull up Gleason to kind of illustrate what I'm talking about. Antarctica in a flat Earth cosmology is well, it's what the Bible talks about as God's boundaries for the seas that hold the oceans in. And I believe it's also the leading edge of the great deep. The Bible says the surface of the great deep is frozen. Um, so understand there's this surface of water. It's right there in Genesis 1. The Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, the surface of the waters. So the universe is, well, there's different types of water. Um, Understand that technically gas, or our atmosphere, is a fluid medium. Um, but then, of course, there's, waters like the oceans that we are familiar with. So in the biblical cosmology, there's the great deep. We have no idea how far it extends. It might be it might be infinite. It might extend in all directions forever. But the surface of the great deep in the biblical cosmology, the Bible says it's frozen, and the sun, moving over the earth realm, thaws out this little pond region that we live in, and the earth is in the water and standing out of the water, according to the scriptures. Um, we don't know that there is an edge. So that would be another thing that be careful about talking about an edge. The Flat Earth Society's representation of things is this, like a floating disc in space. This is what people who don't really believe the flat Earth or haven't really done their homework and researched it extensively will put out there. Um, Understand, you'll sometimes see this where you have the disk, and then there's all the other planets, Mercury, Venus, Saturn, and all that, and they're all orbiting around the sun. It's the heliocentric model, but with the planet Earth replaced with this cracker Earth flying through space. It's ridiculous. And serious flat earthers who have done their homework don't hold to that. As I said, we don't know if there's an edge or not. But the Earth, from the scriptures, seems like it's standing out from the great deep. Um, and anyway, let's see. So the idea that gravity is due to the cracker Earth flying through space in the heliocentric model at 9.8 meters per second squared, we don't hold to that. We don't hold to the flat Earth having an edge. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but we just can't know with our current understanding of things right now. And I don't think that saying it does have an edge, I don't think that fits in a biblical cosmology. I don't think that it has been proven to my satisfaction that outer space, as it's presented to us by NASA and the other space agencies, is real. I don't see it. They have not demonstrated that to me. And they've definitely demonstrated that they're not trustworthy organizations. And likewise, the sun and moon go under the earth at night, and that's why it gets dark. Or I should say the sun. The moon obviously is up at night sometimes. Again, this goes along with the flat cracker Earth flying through outer space. It is this is a representation, I guess, of the disk Earth flying through space and that causing gravity, I think is what's going on there. Again, another ridiculous disk Earth floating in space, heliocentric model. Notice that this picture, they put the sun outside of the firmament, which is not what the Bible says. So that would be another problem there. And here we have the floating disk Earth in space and the sun and moon going underneath it. And some people have put that out there as an explanation of the day-night cycle. It doesn't work. There's no version of this that works with the sun and the moon going under the Earth. And notice in these representations, you often just have a Mercator projection slapped onto the flat Earth. No, the Mercator projection is a distortion. It's a distortion whose purpose is to make Earth representable on a rectangular like wall map style, but it's a distortion. I have an article somewhere. I'm not going to pull it up for purposes of this video, but that article, it's not coming from a flat earther perspective at all. It's actually coming from professionals who work with mapping and cartography. And in that article, it says that the AE, azimuthal equidistant projection, is the most accurate representation of the northern hemisphere. The distances, if you want a map that shows the distances correctly, use an AE map for the northern hemisphere. Now, those guys, it was an interesting article. Maybe I'll talk about it later in another video. Now, of course, we flat earthers hold that the reason the AE map is a good representation of reality for the northern hemisphere is because it's actually just a good representation of reality. Historically, the AE map, this is Gleason's version of it, was used as the air map for World War II in the Pacific Theater. So that's all this stuff out in here. Why? Well, because the distances are right. And if the distances are right, and the AE map is the best representation of the distances in the northern hemisphere, maybe this is actually what our Earth realm looks like, possibly. Just throwing that out there. Now understand Gleason's map, which is this one. This was also a functional time zone calculator. Interesting. And but I will say this map is over 100 years old now at this point, so a lot of exploration of the Antarctic, for example, has been done since Gleason. And so we do have a better understanding of the coastlines and things like that, some of the land masses under the ice than Gleason did in his day. You'll notice his Antarctica is not as detailed as some of the features that you'll see on modern maps. All right, so carrying on here. Um, oh yeah, so the day-night cycle. Let's talk about this because it goes hand in hand with our next point, which is that the sun and moon are spotlights shining down on the flat Earth. I do not believe this. Uh, this is an attempt to explain why the sun seems to illuminate a circular, relatively circular area of the Earth plane. And I'm just trying to mentally wrestle a little bit with how to best explain this to you guys. So let me put it this way. I pulled this up. The intersection of a sphere and a plane is what? So you've got a plane, you've got a sphere. If they intersect, what is the intersection of them? Well, it's going to be a circular area. What am I trying to convey here? Well, the plane is your flat Earth surface, and your sphere is actually a radius of light being projected outward from a light source, your sun and your moon. What am I getting at here, though? So the sun and the moon, they don't have to be spotlights shining just downwards on the Earth, and they're not, because you can go up in altitude and stuff, and you don't ever get outside of the spotlight cone. These are the sun and moon are radiating their light, outwards in all directions. And we'll talk about why I think that they are spherical, in fact, in just a moment. I know some flat earthers disagree with me on that, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But understand that if they're radiating a sphere of light around them, like a lantern, for example, where that light intersects with the Earth is a relatively circular region. So you don't need them to be spotlights in order to get a relatively circular spot of illumination on the Earth. What some flat earthers are still not quite grasping, those who hold to the spotlight or flashlight concept, is that light has a limited range, as do your eyes, by the way. Your eyes cannot see infinite distance out to, your eyes cannot focus on stars that are tens of millions of light years away. That's ludicrous. That's ridiculous. That's pseudoscience. We've all been told from a young age that that's how our eyes work, but it's just a lie, like many other things we've been told. I'm not going to develop that further. You can look into that for yourself. But I do want to focus on light having a range, um, specifically the light of the sun and the moon. Atmosphere has a weight to it. And there's things like dust, there's things like smog, there's things like water vapor, and darkness that the sun's light has to push through. Think of it like a lantern in the foggy woods at midnight. That lantern is going to illuminate a circle around it, well, really technically a spherical radius around it that's going to light up a circle of the forest floor. And of course, you'll see the light while you're inside that circle, that radius of light. And you'll be able to go outside that circle and see it for a while as well. But eventually, if you get far enough from that lantern, the lantern's light can't push through the darkness and the fog and the moisture to get to you, and it's going to fade away. You're not going to be able to see it anymore, even if you have a direct line of sight to it, because light does not travel infinitely forever. There's something called the inverse square law of light, which means that the further you get from the light source, the more diminished the intensity of the light becomes. Basically, is what's going on there. So don't use this idea that the sun and the moon are spotlights or flashlights shining down on the Earth. It's just not true. Um, the best explanation of this is that they are radiating their light outwards in 360 degrees, and I do believe that they are spherical as well. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But a spherical light source, it's very efficient for lighting in all directions. That's why we use spherical light sources in our homes. For example, over your dining room table or what have you, the hanging spherical lamp. Um, Anyway, let's carry on. So I think we cover the spotlight thing in adequate detail. So are the sun and moon flat disks? Um, a lot of flat earthers believe that they are or that they could be. And I will say this, there is a possibility that they could be. I'll leave it at that. I don't think they are, and I'm going to show you in just a moment why I don't think they are. Before I do that, though, I want to point out that it is uh, it is a logical fallacy to look up and see what's up in the heavens and say, okay, they look spherical, therefore the Earth is spherical. We as flat earthers understand that. And the phrase that flat earthers will put out there sometimes is um, the shape of the light fixtures does not determine the shape of the floor. So in your house, you might have a globular light fixture. It's a globe, it's round, it's spherical. That doesn't mean that your floor in your house is round and spherical, and that's correct. Shape of the light fixtures does not determine the shape of the floor. But don't fall into the trap of the seesaw effect, going too far in the other direction. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that the shape of the floor determines the shape of the light fixtures, because now you're just doing the same fallacy but in reverse. So saying that because the Earth is a flat disk or a plane, flat plane, that's better language there, that the Earth is a flat plane, that therefore the sun and the moon, the greater luminaries, are flat disks. Um, that's another logical leap that should not be made. And I do actually believe that the sun and the moon are spherical, and I have some reasons for that. One is the footage of the Go Fast rocket that went up and then spun around and actually captured the moon. Um, it looks pretty spherical to me from high altitude. Uh, I haven't seen any credible footage that demonstrates that the sun or moon are actually disks and not spheres. And then another reason why I think that here's just another stock image of sun and moon being presented as spheres. But another reason why I think that they're spheres is this. It's called lunar libration. Now, I will say this, I've not personally observed for this. It either is a thing or it's a completely made up thing. I don't know. I'm not an astronomer. Those of you who are amateur astronomers and who actually have checked up on all this stuff in detail for yourselves, feel free to look into this. But we would just call this in layman's terms the moon wobbles. And what that means, functionally speaking, Wikipedia lays this out, is we can actually see more than 50% of the surface of the moon. We can see approximately, I think they said 59% because of this wobble. Because of this wobble, you can see more real estate, so to speak, around the edges of the moon at different times. Where's my percentage? I'm sure it was in here somewhere. I think I'm just missing it right now. Yeah, here we go. We can see slightly more than half of the moon's surface, about 59%, according to Wikipedia. Like I said, I've not personally verified this stuff. Um, those of you who are amateur astronomers can look into this for yourself. But here's a just an animated image of what that looks like. Now ignore the light and the dark, and just look at the surface features, so to speak, of the moon. You can see this wobble where the moon is sort of rolling a little bit here and there, and so you can see at different points a little bit more real estate around the edges as it rolls certain ways, and then it's going to roll back this other way, and you'll see a little bit more around this edge and so forth. That's what they're talking about, lunar libration. And there's different explanations and concepts of why that might be happening. Um, but I do think this demonstrates fairly conclusively, to my satisfaction anyway, that the lights that God created to light up this earth realm, that they're spherical. And that makes sense because it's just an efficient shape for radiating light outward in 360 degrees in all directions. Um, all right, so what's the next thing? So this one is you may disagree with me on this one, maybe not. I'm going to talk about kind of two sides of it. And crepuscular rays. I think I spelled that right. There are some flat earthers who will throw this out there and they're very adamant that this is absolutely 100% proof that the sun must be near and local, these crepuscular rays. And what they are is you just get these sun rays that when you have layers of broken clouds with holes in it and stuff, the sun shines through and you get these effects. So these would be crepuscular rays, I guess. The problem with this is um, And then there's some non-flat earther resources on this that talk about, is this proof positive of flat Earth, or of a close and local sun or not? And they point out that there's various ways that this could be replicated with a far sun, just simply due to perspective. Perspective is really tricky, especially when we start talking about light and shadow and stuff like that. And here's an example of what I mean by that. Let's say you have two people, they're on the shore of a lake, and across the lake, they're watching the sunset. So each of those people watching the sunset, between them and the sun, they are seeing an illuminated swath of water from the sun's reflection. However, neither of them are seeing the illuminated swath of water that the other is seeing. Do you see what I'm saying here? To some degree, perspective is subjective. And the version of reality that you're seeing, because of the position that you are holding as you observe it, is completely unique to you, and no one's seeing that exact same situation. Even if they're 3 feet away from you, on your right, looking at the same phenomenon, they are seeing a different illuminated swath of water between them and the sun. They are seeing different patterns of cloud and light than you are. Um, and there's some of that at play here with these crepuscular rays. So I do not think that it is proof positive. I think it's evidence the sun could be near and local. And of course, as a Bible believing Christian and a flat earther, I do believe that the sun is relatively small, that it is local, and so forth. But this is not the best evidence for that, I don't think. And if you really start digging into the details on it, it's been a while since I've dug into it, but I really liked this at first as a strong proof for flat Earth, but then after I researched it, I decided that it really wasn't as strong as it first appeared. Now, something that is a very strong proof of flat Earth, I think, is the sun has a hot spot. And this is not just a reflection. A reflection is kind of a different thing, from the hot spot that you can clearly see in some of these high altitude footages and stuff like that. Um, and you got to be careful with any of these pictures anymore, because so many of them can be fakes or photoshopped or whatever. This one here, I believe, is a clip from a high altitude balloon that's pretty well known, so this is real footage. But it's getting harder and harder to tell um, what's fake and what's real online, because the technology and AI and stuff like that, it's going to be a real mess. And I'm getting to the point where I'm either going to disconnect from digital technology entirely at some point in the future, or I'm going to stop accepting it as any kind of evidence or substantiation for anything, because we're getting to the point where any of it can be faked. You can fake voices with AI, you can fake video with AI, you can fake images with AI, you can fake social media posts with AI. There's tutorials online now of how to create these fake AI characters and run like Instagram accounts and OnlyFans accounts and all this nonsense using these fake characters, and these you can generate images of these characters and they look nearly photorealistic. It's going to get to the point where there's going to be fake people online. I mean, there already are, of course. We all know about catfishing and stuff like that. Uh, but it's going to get to the point where your odds of encountering reality online are just so slim. It's all going to be fantasy. It's all going to be manipulated. So be careful with that stuff. Anyway, I hope you found this video to be interesting. And, if you have thoughts, feel free to post them. If you disagree with my ideas on any of this, feel free to post it in the comments. If you think some of this is good or helpful, by all means, share that as well. I hope you found this interesting. Have a good one. Bye-bye.